I don't think I'm dreaming.
What gave it away?
I ain't got the brains to make this up.
Newt Scamander, a wizard who studies and cares for magical creatures, goes to New York in a time of great unrest for both the magic and non-magic communities. A bunch of the creatures that Newt's brought with him get loose, about the same time that a mysterious other creature is wreaking havoc upon New York, thus getting Newt wrapped up in the same chaos.
The Good.
This movie takes place about 70 years before the story of Harry Potter begins. So the view of the wizarding world that we get in this movie is 1920s America, which admittedly has quite a number of parallels to their British counterpart. One of the key aspects of daily life that's given focus in this movie for American wizards is secrecy. The idea that wizards must not allow the magical world to be discovered by non-magic people, known in America as no-mages. And the believability of this world is very easy to get wrapped up in thanks to a lot of really great performances in the movie by both the protagonists and antagonists. I was a bit hesitant about Eddie Redmayne playing Newt Scamander because the only thing I'd seen him in prior is Jupiter Ascending. Thankfully, I had nothing to fear. The most prominent thing about this character is his expertise regarding magical creatures. And so it's fitting that his compassion that he shows when interacting with these magical creatures is where the strongest aspects of his character come from. Along for the ride is Dan Fogler as Jacob Kowalski, a supporting non-magic character. For starters, he makes a very good surrogate for the audience, especially new audiences who might not have seen Harry Potter and might not be very familiar with the wizarding world. And on top of that, his character is generally likable and very funny. Much of the activity of this movie involves Newt Scamander going around trying to recollect his magical creatures. Naturally, this is going to result in some hijinks. But the great thing is that a lot of these hijinks are not just humorous. The hijinks actually beget some tension for the story because his involvement with magical creatures is exactly how Newt gets mixed up into the main plot. Given that this movie takes place in the same world as Harry Potter, albeit 70 years prior to the story of Harry Potter, there are naturally some comparisons to be made. Firstly, this movie does a good job of using what's familiar to the audience already, but there's also plenty of new stuff to focus on, so it doesn't have to lean on the old stuff. Secondly, the era that this movie takes place in is a very notable part of wizarding history. And simply given to the fact that I'm used to the tone that's set by the Harry Potter movies, this movie covers a few subjects that are considerably darker than what I expected. There's a group of characters in this movie that give you a good idea of just how bad the stigma is against even the potential of witches and wizards existing. The negative impact it can have when someone within that community has magical powers and has to severely repress them. And one more thing that was present in the movie that I don't want to give away because I really don't want to give away the surprise of what it actually is, but just something that exists within the wizarding community that is severely messed up.
The Iffy.
As I said before, Eddie Redmayne did a good job as Newt Scamander, but occasionally, whether it be because he doesn't open his mouth enough or whether he mutters a bunch of his lines, sometimes he's a little difficult to understand. Though there does exist plenty that separates this movie from Harry Potter, I feel like the level of magic shown, the spells that they use, the techniques, not much evolves between the two eras. However, I think there exists an argument within the Harry Potter universe that involves the wizards not really going forward technologically very much.
The Bad.
There were a lot of emotions thrown around in the ending of the movie. Resolution, catharsis, dread for the future, some sadness, some happy endings, and overall it just feels emotionally uneven and kind of awkward for it.
The Verdict?
Fantastic Beasts gave us a good look at a corner of the wizarding world that we're not used to seeing. It touched on some pretty dark, intense material, and it left open promising possibilities for the 4 movies that are eventually going to follow it. Overall, I'd say this was a very successful first installment of a new franchise in the wizarding world. This is Detective Steve, and just how are they going to title those sequels? Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them 2? Newt Scamander and the Blankety Blank? I'm just not sure.